Good morning and welcome to 2025. Today is the 2nd of January. Today's video is about today's wedding. Obviously the first one of 2025. And as you know, I'm moving away from doing just videos about gear. So today, as I say, it's about today's wedding. So at the moment, where are we? 10 o'clock. Wedding starts, I've got to be there at 1 o'clock. I'm going to leave about 12. So I've got all my gear ready. So I was going to run through the gear I've got, what I take these days, a quick description of how I use it, when I use it, and a sort of an idea of how the day is going to go. During the day, I'll try and do some little clips of video during the day. Tomorrow, when we get back, I'll have a look at the photos on the screen. I'll show you some of those, talk about them, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. Okay, so briefly, today is, as I say, it starts at 1 o'clock. It's at a venue that I've been to loads of times before, Woodhall Manor. Lovely venue. The couple are Emily and Matt, I believe. I better check that, haven't I? Sorry, I've got that wrong. It's Emma and George. I'm thinking of last wedding about 10 days ago, before Christmas. So Emma and George, 1 o'clock. The ceremony isn't till 4, so it's kind of a twilight wedding. Only 60 guests, so not too big, thank goodness, for reasons you'll see in a minute. So I'm arriving at 1, which is right at the beginning of her prep. So there's not going to be a lot of to photograph immediately, but that will give me plenty of time to do the dress, rings, shoes, flowers, and all the other stuff. Also go off and see the groom, George, because he's getting ready there as well in a separate room, him and the guys. So I can be floating back and forth between the two rooms, getting shots of them all getting ready. On to the ceremony at 4 o'clock. Should be straightforward. Although I do know Woodhall Manor well, and the room they're getting married in during the summer, it's no problem. It's got some fairly big windows. But with the wedding at 4 o'clock, it's going to be pretty dark. I'm not sure when the sunset is, but I know that by 4 o'clock it's not completely dark, but it's well on the way there. I think sunset's maybe sort of 10 past 4 or something. So they're going to have artificial lights. And I know there's not many of them. There's just a few sort of chandeliers in the ceiling. It's an old manor house. We are going to get some ceremony shots with pretty high ISO, but we'll have a look at those tomorrow when I get back and see how they turn out. Then they'll have canapes and drinks and so on, and then about 5 o'clock we'll do the group shots. I don't actually know where I'm going to do that because obviously it's dark at 5 o'clock in January here in the UK. So it may well be probably that we'll end up doing the group shots in the ceremony room, hoping the venue, of course, clear all the chairs out and we can do some group shots there. So it's going to be slightly unusual. Normally, of course, group shots would be outside. And then we're on to the meal where I sit down and I eat as well. Speeches afterwards, cake cutting and first dance is at 8 to 8:15. I bet my life that's more like 8:45 to 9 o'clock. So it's a 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It's an average kind of day. Okay, the gear. I used to take everything, including the kitchen sink. Over the last 2-3 years probably, I've reduced it down, and I now take really only the stuff I actually use, because all the other stuff I took just in case, I never got to use it. I never needed to. So my gear is my Z6 III and my Z6 II. And I use 2 cameras always, and my lenses, I've got the 58 on the Z6 III and the 24 on the Z6 II. In my lens bag I've got my 85 1.4 and the 35 1.4, and obviously all the batteries charged up, including the spare, and I've got 2 spare cameras. I'll come to that in a second, and they've got batteries in, all charged up. 10 minutes ago I sat down, went through, made sure that they were all charged, formatted the cards, having previously this morning made sure that I've got not last week, the week before's wedding, before Christmas, both on my hard drive and on my backup drive on my main computer. So I've got it in 2 places, and I've already edited these photos from that wedding. They've already been uploaded. So I'm pretty secure that I can now finally delete them off the cameras. And I always keep the wedding photos, the raw photos, straight out of the camera in 2 places until they've got their photos in their gallery, they've come back to me with their choice of photos for the album, and basically the whole thing is finished. I will then delete my backup off my main computer and just keep recycling that. So, sorry, I digress. So I use those 2 cameras. One will have the 24 on, and one will have a 58 on. That will be probably what I'll use to start with for prep indoors. It's a reasonable sized room, but it's not huge, and those 2 lenses for that sort of situation work well. Later on in the day, when we move across from the old hall to the new part of the venue, which is a lot bigger, I will probably switch to the 35 and the 85. For things like the group shot, depends where we do it. It could be the 24 if it's quite small. I prefer to use the 35 because there's much less, well, there's no distortion basically with the 35. I don't tend to go for 50 because if I've got a decent sized group with a 50 lens, I'm so far away I can't shout loud enough for people to hear me, so I don't like to be too far away for the group shots and that kind of thing. Right, so that's my main cameras and 4 lenses. I also take my D780 as a backup. I've got a 28 2.8 D lens on that, just in case anything goes wrong with the other lens, and it saves me having a lens cap on and it doesn't take up any space. And then I've got my ZF with a 40 f2 lens on, again just as a backup, just literally as a backup. I don't actually use it, that will stay out in the car unless I actually need it, which from previous experience I won't, but anyway, it's there. 1 spare battery, and of course a battery in each of the spare cameras should I need them. I do find actually I take about 1600 shots at a wedding. Maybe today it'll be a few less, but I find I get from the Z6 III, I get close to 1000, certainly around about 900 shots. Z6 II, few less, probably 600-700. So I can usually get through the day without even using a spare battery. I find with two cameras. Right, other stuff I take. Rotor light, what is it? A Neo 2? I've forgotten. Rotor light Pro. Oh, it's gone off now. Anyway, it's the modern, latest rotor light LED light, which is absolutely fabulous. It lasts forever. I've got in my bag I've got a flash trigger, Godox flash trigger, which I can use this for flash should I want to. I tend not to because it's not TTL, it's manual. If I was going to use it for flash, it would only be for things like portrait shots where I've got time to set it up and get the flash correct. Most of the time I'll just use it as a constant light source. My 2 flashes which I take, the AD400 and Godox V1 or V2? V1. I use these, the V1 nice and small on the stand, and I have that around close by for most of the day. If I find it is a bit too dark, then I will use that. I almost never use on-camera flash, it's always off-camera. And their main use is during the group shot. I have both of those set up kind of alongside me, facing towards the group, illuminating the group. TTL, underexpose the ambient by about 1 stop, so they haven't got much work to do. I tend to have, if I can, obviously during daylight, not today, the light, the sun, if there is any, behind the group, so that I'm illuminating the shadows on the group, and it just helps them stand out a bit more. So that's gear, lighting. What I'm going to do during the day, I just need to get my stuff all in the car and get going. Not forgetting to do something to eat at lunchtime. Right, so I'll catch up with you later today, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we've just arrived. It is just about 10 to 1, so 10 minutes early. Absolutely perfect. Damn cold, 4 degrees, but it's sunny, not too much wind, and looking forward to a good day. So, just finished all the group shots, and it's all been a bit of a rush because it's all very compressed, being a twilight wedding. We had about 20 group shots to get. I think we've probably only got about 15 or 16, so we've missed a few. And the bride is, all the guests and the bride and groom will be walking over to the I'll be walking backwards. Can you stop me when I get here? Mind you, it should be okay. Right. So when you throw confetti, rather than try and get it down a dresser.
Mine's that time I got speeding ticket.
Wasted some confetti then.
Storms. I've got the responsibility of stopping it. You're really in there, buddy.
Well done, guys.
Thank you.
I've no idea if that works. I've done that for... Okay, sorry. Brilliant. Do not blink. You can't blink. Okay. Now, bride and grooms have a kiss. No, you two, not me. Have a kiss. Anyone give me a wave? Excellent. I think. So, just finished all the group shots, and it's all been a bit of a rush because it's all very compressed, being a twilight wedding. We had about 20 group shots to get. I think we've probably only got about 15 or 16, so we've missed a few. And the bride is, all the guests and the bride and groom will be walking over to the wedding breakfast in a moment. And on the way, there's a nice arch. I'll just show it to you. A covered arch. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, here it is. It's a bit bright behind me. They're going to walk down there. And what I've done is I've set up, I don't know if you can see it behind me, I've set my to light up just behind me there. It's not on at the moment. So that's going to get me one shot, which will be looking back through that archway. Then I walk up here and we come to some light from some side light here, which I guess you can see from there, which will get me another shot. And then at the end of the book I've set up my AD200, onto which I fitted a small softbox, which I forgot to mention in my list of gear that I bring with me. So that's the small softbox on the AD200, and that will get me my last shot, and then we'll go into the wedding breakfast. And it's about 1 degree. My hands are absolutely frozen stiff. Here we have 324 photos taken with, now earlier on I was saying I use mainly the Z6 III and the Z6 II, but you'll see I did take an awful lot of photos with the ZF as well, and the most of those were with the 24. I was just using the Z6 II, and I was thinking, hold on, I'm missing that 3D tracking that I use with the Z6 III. The Z6 III, basically the only focus mode that I use is AFC, of course, with 3D tracking. And I use that 96-97% of the time. And of course on the Z6 II you haven't got that, whereas on the ZF you have. So I reverted to using the ZF actually, although I said that was a spare camera. It did end up being my second camera. And just going back to gear, I said also in my gear list that I've got the 24, 35, 58 and 85 1.4s, f-mount lenses. I took along the 40 f2, which I've used a few times, and I'm actually, just talk about gear for a moment because I'm sure you're quite happy to. I'm actually really impressed with that lens. More and more, let's have a look at this one. The more I use it, the more impressed I am. That's straight out of the camera, out of the Z6, sorry, out of the ZF. And it's I mean, it's not perfectly exposed, or well, maybe it is actually, but it's not far off. It's just a really nice photo. It gives a lovely look. It's not as sharp as, say, the 35 1.8 Z lens, but if you know anything about me, I'm not after sharpness, I'm after character, and I think that's got some lovely character. And if I apply one of my presets, which I shall talk about more in a moment, to this photo, and I'll explain what that's done in a moment, we'll just get it a little bit brighter. We've got some lovely separation there. I just like that look. So I'm going to be using that 41.2 40 f2 somewhat more in the future, I think. You'll see I did a few shots with the Leica. That's just playing around. It wasn't anything serious. Right, so let's go through my workflow, how I go from here, having 324 photos, to giving the bride, probably I would look on this wedding, because it wasn't quite as long as some weddings, probably around 280 photos. So I will just go through these at this sort of size, and go back to the beginning, and just click on those I like. The ones I've clicked here already, because my wife actually makes wedding cakes, and that's her cake, so she's already been after me for cake photos, which she's now had. But I would go through, let's just take that off, I'll make that better, and I just hit 6 on the keyboard to select all the photos I want to give the couple, and I will just go through like this, and very quickly just select those that I want, just hit the 6 on the keyboard, and just keep going through until I've done, well, until I've got to the end of the photos. Let's do another one of those. couple more and then I'll get on to editing. Let's skip to a bit later on. Right, the ceremony. Let's have that one. And oh, actually, let's go on to. You saw in the video earlier that the ceremony was at 4 o'clock, so it was already dark. They wanted to do confetti, not sparklers. They did have sparklers, but they wanted to do confetti. So we had to do it outside on the driveway, and you can see just how dark this was. Now, my setup here, you see it's pitch dark. I mean, literally, this was, what time was this? This was about 10 to 5 in January in the UK. It's dark. But these people have got light on. Now, this isn't flash. This is, what I did was I set the rotor light up, and so that I had some light as the bride and groom appeared. If we go a little bit further down, I think I probably, yeah, I moved the rotor light a little bit after that shot so that it was pointing down between the two rows of people, so that I just had a bit of light on the couple so that focusing was possible. There's no camera going to focus in pitch dark like that was, but you can see here it has focused. I think it's probably focused on them. Whereas if I didn't have the rotor light and just relied, I had, was it one? Yes, I think I had just one flash when I actually took the shot connected to the camera, off-camera flash. But it would have still been really, really difficult because flash doesn't help you focus, of course. So that's the way I get round shooting when it's pitch dark, and I think you'll agree that's reasonably well in focus, given that, in fact, it's actually pretty well in focus, given the lighting situation. So we got some decent shots, I think. Let's go back to the library of them. I haven't got any confetti in there. So again, it just it makes focusing possible, and the whole thing works. So, in fact, let's do that one as a red one. Right, so if I now go to the red ones, and I have already, before I did this video, picked out 20, I think it was 25, that I've already sent to the couple as their sneak peeks. So some of these have already been processed. But let's have a look at those that haven't. So this one. You'll notice over here, I have user presets, and I've got an awful lot of these, just over a page load, and I will choose one of these that I think is going to suit that particular photograph. And all I would do is, let's choose my weddings one, and with a little bit of straightening, that photo is ready to go to the couple. What this does, and with all these presets, I see a lot of people posting photos on Lightroom and Facebook and Instagram and so on, and it looks like they haven't used anything like what Lightroom is able to do these days. Lightroom's got some fantastic features in the last couple of years, and I do make use of those. And the main thing that I make use of is the subject detection. So this is with the 85 at 1.6. So that's already given me a lot of separation between our groom here and the background. But it's nice to be able to do different things to your subject compared to what you want to do to the background. So here, for instance, that light in the background is a little bit too dominating, and it's detracting from our groom here. What I do is I use subject detection. So we detect the subject, and the subject is now selected, so that it show up in red. And Lightroom does an absolutely stunning job, even down to sort of hair here. It's done a really, really good job of selecting our subject. And then I've got a load of presets. Where are we? These are standard Lightroom ones. These are ones that I've created myself, and I've got one called Flash Half Sharpen. So what this does, it gives me a bit more light. It drops the highlights a little bit. I think it does a couple of other things. Bit of texture, a little bit of dehaze, and There's no grain whatsoever. Little bit of sharpness and that kind of thing. So just to give my subject a bit of pop, but we haven't done anything to the background. Now, what I could do is I could leave that as it is. If we drop the highlights, then maybe we'll get rid of some of that brightness from the light there, and that's too much. So about there. Now our subject's a bit dark, but because our subject is separate, I can go back and I can lift the shadows just on the subject, and very easily get an image with a heck of a lot of pop, where those lights aren't quite so dominating. Very easily we can go a step further, and we can select that, we can add and we can right click, and we can do duplicate and invert. What that will now do is select all the background, and we can do something totally different to the background. And if I apply one of these soft skin, it's not actually meant for the background, it's meant for portrait shots. But what it does is just applying some, it's reducing the highlights again, and I can again reduce the highlights if I wanted to try and get those lights down a bit more. But mainly it's reducing the texture and the clarity, and added some grain to the background only. Again, it just separates our subject and background, and that's the look I like. His jacket really was that bright. You might be thinking that red's a bit bright, but it really was that bright. So again, for something like this, background isn't, you know, she's separated, but the look I want is much more like this. She's a little bit too bright. Let's take that down a tad. Okay, that's fine. And again, you'll notice that's with the 40 f2. So another very nice looking photo, a bit less highlights maybe. And that is my editing. So what I do is for a whole series of photos. So for instance, once I've selected my 280 or 300 photos, I can go to this one, because this is the beginning of the ceremony. I can apply my preset and just get everything so it looks around about right, and then just select all the rest, do sync, check all, hit synchronize, go away, make a cup of coffee, come back, and these will all be done. And let me do that. I'll just pause the video. Okay, I didn't time that, but that was probably about 2 minutes to do all those shots, and I can now go through all the shots in that sequence, and probably all I need to do is a little bit on the exposure for each shot. I can move on, and for this one, that was focused literally on the bride's mum. So this was with the 58 lens. I didn't happen to have the 85 on either of my cameras at that point, so we just crop that in, and maybe just a little bit brighter, too much there, and just carry on through the rest of them, just really, as I say, adjusting the exposure, maybe the crop, straightening them up, and all the rest is done for me. So whilst it might take maybe in total 6 hours to edit 300 photos, I'm actually only sitting at my computer watching it for probably 2 hours. The computer is doing all the rest of the work. I just noticed, I'll just digress slightly, a nice black and white one here, which again was taken with the 40 f2. This, I'm really getting to love that 40 f2, and I think that would have been on the ZF camera. No, I put that on the Z6 III. Okay, so but that is, I love it. That's a gorgeous black and white photo. Oh, I'll just mention the group shots. I don't know if I've got one here, have I? Yes. Because lighting was, I think you saw a clip in the video of the lighting setup I had. It was one of the most difficult group shots I've ever done. Again, pitch dark. This was after the confetti shot, so we're now way past 5 o'clock, quarter past, 5:30, totally dark. The only light I had was from the house, which of course is all behind our group shot. So if I didn't use flash, these people would just be literally black. And my normal setup is exactly what I use, nothing clever. One flash on this side, one flash over this side, pointing sort of to this part for the right hand flash and to this part for the left hand flash, meaning in the middle we tend to get a little bit more light in the middle, which just so happens to be where the bride and groom are. So if anything, they're slightly brighter than the rest of the group, which is kind of perfect, I think. And it works pretty well, as you can see. For a group shot in pitch dark, that's not too bad. And one final thing, again, going back to gear, the 40F2, I've been saying I like, and it's also occurred to me that I do also like, and I'll try and find some shots, the 50 Z mount 1.4, not the 1.8. I've had the 1.8 S lens, and I didn't like it. Way too sharp. What's the word? It looks like a smartphone on steroids. It just doesn't do it for me. It lacks character. And so I got the 51.4, sort of, I think I bought it from Amazon so that I could try it out and I could send it back, no questions asked, if I didn't like it. Anyway, I did like it. And let me show you a couple of shots from the 51.4. Okay, as you can see, I've taken 2,100 photos with the 51.4 since I've had it, and I'm going to be using it a lot more because the more I look back at the photos that I've taken with this, this is from an engagement shoot, the more I love the photos. They just have that character, that look that I love. And so if you're considering a great 50mm lens for your Z camera, for me the 1.4 gives nicer looking photos, not sharper, but nicer looking photos than the 1.8 Z lens, and coincidentally, it's about half, no, 2/3 the price. Anyway, it's a lot cheaper. So that's my thoughts for today. I hope you've enjoyed that video. I'll be doing another one. Actually, I'm going to do probably the next video will be about a portrait shoot. I'm trying to line up either an engagement shoot or a dedicated portrait shoot, and I'll do a similar video when I come to do that shoot. I'll speak to you then. Oh, by the way, Happy New Year. Cheers for now.